There are only 5 habits that make avoidance beg for your attention. But here's the hidden truth that no one talks about with avoidance. Trying to make them beg for you is a trap because what they say they want isn't actually what they truly desire. It's a little bit complicated. But let's take a look at our first habit. Habit number 1. Stop trying to get avoidance back. No, seriously. I got my start on YouTube helping people through breakups. Now, most of the time, someone who wants an ex back doesn't necessarily take too kindly to being told that they should stop trying to get that ex back. And yet, that's exactly what they should do for a lot of different reasons. Avoidants are no different. Even if you want them back, the best play is always to stop trying to get them back. Look at this. This is free to attach, probably one of the best avoidant resources I've been able to find online. Right here, it says, avoidants are free to long for an ex once that person is unavailable, out of the relationship, and typically out of contact, so they are untouched by actual engagement, and their deactivation systems aren't triggered, which reveals their long suppressed attachment and switches their operating attachment wound from the fear of engulfment to the fear of abandonment. Now, this isn't the first time that I've quoted these exact words from Free to Attach, but what I've never done is shown you how this phenomenon plays out in real life. So let's do this. Let's go to Reddit, specifically the breakups subreddit, and let's hyper-focus in on this thread. Avoidant attachment perspective, we don't mean it. It's written by this guy, Dragonfire 1900. Again, this is someone claiming that they are avoidant and just went through a breakup. Now, I found their description of their breakup experience quite interesting. When I was growing up, my parents were about as emotionally absent as it's possible to be. No I love yous, they played down my issues or achievements, and I can even think on a few occasions where my family openly made fun of my problems. I ended up developing a knack for not showing any emotion or any desire for a connection, learning from a very young age to be as independent as possible and to avoid intimacy and reliance on others. All of this was subconscious and unintentional, but now that I look back, I can see that there were real physiological reasons for why I wouldn't want my parents to come and support me playing rugby, why I wouldn't want to tell them how my day has been, why I'm uncomfortable with others celebrating my birthdays. The list could go on. Closing off from people was my natural protective mechanism, and therefore I always saw the downplaying of emotions as a good thing. So when I met someone who had a really supportive and loving upbringing, she naturally expected me to provide those things too, from supporting her successes to offering a bit of emotional support when she needed it. Things that she shouldn't even have to ask for were all things that I really struggled to do and did not know the importance of, since it was all so alien to me. I would become uncomfortable when the relationship got too close, often distancing myself from things such as talking about the future or even just admitting that I missed her. It's a bit like learning a new language. I know I got bits of it right now and again, but I felt stupid for not being fluent. So I'd pull myself back into an emotionalist retreat, and it just felt all so normal to me. Understandably, over 2 years of wanting basic things from someone who is unable to provide them, it's bound to take its toll. Issues are left unresolved, needs are not met, and it's inevitable that they're going to start wondering if this is the right person for them, no matter how strong the connection is. In my case, the girl eventually broke up with me, and I was lucky in the sense that she had the confidence and courtesy to outline the reasons and the things I wasn't doing for her, which then allowed me to go and research relationships, find out about attachment theory, and understand myself better. I truly did love this girl, so it's hard to know the pain I must have caused her. Okay, so we can take hours unpacking this Reddit thread, but there's something specific I want you to take note of. Notice how this individual's entire vibe is one of regret, but also notice the timing of when he's making this message. The girl, who by his own admission he's in love with, broke up with him. And again, according to Free to Attach, avoidants are free to long for an ex once that person is unavailable, out of the relationship. We're literally seeing that play out in this guy's response. He's fawning over his ex because she left him. There's no potential threat of his independence being triggered. And this really leads seamlessly to our next main habit. Habit number 2, they are drawn to people who engage their subconscious mind. Let's pull out attached. On page 113, Rachel S.F. Heller writes,
6 independent studies have examined how accessible attachment issues are to avoidance. They did so by measuring how long it took subjects to report words flashed quickly on a monitor. These tests operated on the well-established premise that the speed with which you report a certain word is indicative of how accessible that theme is in your mind. Researchers found that avoidants are quicker than other people to pick up on words such as need and enmeshed, related to what they consider negative characteristics of their partner's behavior, but slower to recognize words like separation, fight, and loss, associated with their own attachment-related worries. Avoidants, it appears, are quick to think negatively about their partners, seeing them as needy and overly dependent, a major element in their view of relationships. They seemingly despise others for being needy, and are themselves immune to those needs.
Then on page 114, Amir Levine writes,
in the second part of these studies, researchers distracted the avoidants by giving them another task to perform, like solving a puzzle or responding to another cue, while the word recognition test was going on. In these situations, the avoidants reacted to words related to their own attachment worries, separation, loss, death, just as quickly as other people did. Distracted by another task, their ability to repress lessened, and their true attachment feelings and concerns were able to surface. The experiments show that although you may be avoidant, your attachment machinery is still in place, making you just as vulnerable to threats of separation. Only when your mental energy is needed elsewhere and you are caught off guard, however, do these emotions and feelings emerge.
All right, so based on those excerpts from Attached, avoidants have a tendency to repress their attachment worries, but those worries, that closeness you are hoping to forge with them, can surface when they are distracted. To leverage this, you might want to create situations where their subconscious mind is engaged, which allows their true attachment feelings to surface naturally. So, how does one do this? Well, you can invite them to participate in activities that require their full attention but have an emotional component subtly integrated. This could be something like solving complex puzzles, engaging in creative tasks like painting or writing, or participating in activities like escape rooms. Now, during these moments, it's important to subtly introduce conversations or scenarios that hint at attachment themes. This way, their guard is down and they can let their true feelings emerge. All right, let's move on to habit 3, the 4 types of people avoidants are supposed to be drawn to. That's kind of a weird way to start a section, isn't it? But let's just push that weirdness away for one moment. Have you ever heard of the Myers-Briggs type indicator? It's basically a psychological personality test popularized by these ladies, Myers and Briggs. You see, they were fascinated by Carl Jung's theory of psychological types and recognized that the theory could have real-world applications. So here's how it works. It categorizes individuals into 16 distinct personality types based on 4 dichotomies. You have introversion versus extroversion, which is sort of like a preference for focusing on the inner world versus the outer world. Then you have sensing versus intuition, which is a preference for concrete information versus abstract information. You have thinking versus feeling, which of course is a preference for making decisions based on logic versus emotions. And then finally, you have judging versus perceiving, which is a preference for structure and planning versus flexibility and spontaneity. Now, these combinations create like this interesting 4-letter code. So for example, you can add INFP, or you could have ESTJ, and each represents different personality types. Now, in the context of Myers-Briggs type indicator personality types, avoidants might actually be attracted to types that exhibit certain traits which align with their need for space and independence. So here are a few combinations that might be particularly interesting to avoidants. The first one is INTJ, introverted, intuitive, thinking, and judging. So these Individuals are independent, strategic thinkers who value efficiency and competence. They often appreciate their own space and respect others' need for independence. Elon Musk is likely this type of personality. Anyone who has met the man are struck by his obsession with efficiency. The next combination will be INFJ, introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging. These people are empathetic and insightful, but also value their alone time. Their deep understanding and respect for personal boundaries can make avoidants feel secure and respected. Martin Luther King Jr. was likely this type of personality. He demonstrated a deep understanding and respect for personal boundaries and made others feel very secure and valued. ISTP, introverted, sensing, thinking, and perceiving. These people are practical, logical, and independent. They enjoy their personal freedom and are often content with less emotional intensity, which can be appealing to avoidants. Steve Jobs was likely a ISTP personality type. His practical approach to problem solving, logical mindset, and strong independence were key traits. Jobs valued personal freedom and often preferred a straightforward, no-nonsense approach. Then finally we have ISFP, introverted, sensing, feeling, and perceiving. These people are gentle and adaptable with a strong appreciation for personal space and freedom. Their laid-back and non-intrusive nature can be comforting to avoidants. Princess Diana is one of these. She was known for her compassion and humanitarian work, as well as her sensitive and adaptable nature. Okay, so here's the part of the video where our understanding of avoidance is about to completely change. Habit number 4 is the pocket world theory. It took me a long time to understand a simple fact about avoidance. What they say they want in a partner is often different than the partner they actually choose. So all that stuff earlier about the Myers-Briggs personality test, all of that's supposed to be true. Logically, that's supposed to be how avoidants work. But there's this insane nuance to it, and it's a complexity that often perplexes their partners. And to prove that point, I'd like to turn to another Reddit thread. So this person asks, avoidant men, what attracts you? And this person gets a response from That Leaf Boy. Yes, I know this isn't exactly inspiring a lot of confidence in the research, but bear with me here. So That Leaf Boy goes on to say,
I'm definitely attracted to other avoidants. The less a person pries, the more comfortable I feel around them. I'm drawn to relationships that can exist in a sort of pocket world where we don't have to discuss anything outside of our individual experiences with one another. The scariest thing that can happen in a relationship for me is when they start pushing me to open up about my deeper feelings, which usually causes me to back out and sometimes cut them off.
So what avoidants want is a pocket world, a moment in time where they can exist with someone without the pressure of delving into deep emotional discussions. They want this safe haven where they can maintain their emotional distance and independence without fear of being pushed to open up. Again, this is nothing new. I've made multiple videos over the years basically affirming this exact concept. But what an avoidant says they want doesn't really align with the actions they take when choosing a romantic partner. Check this out. This is a list of pretty much everything that I can source with reputable research that describes what avoidants want or are drawn to in other partners. You know, they're attracted to this idea of a phantom ex, which can be found on page 124 of Attached. They're also obsessed with this idea of the one and use it as a deactivating strategy, which again can be found on page 125 of Attached. They want someone who doesn't challenge their independence, page 118 of Attached. If you take an avoidant's word for it, everything they say seems to point to them wanting another avoidant partner. They want someone like them, someone who understands them, who can give them space when they need it. I mean, you can look at some of the attractive habits we've already talked about in this video and see that a lot of them require you to act avoidant, to mirror them. Yet most of the research I found shows that they end up with anxious, preoccupied partners. What is going on here and why? Well, I think it's due to the fact that anxious individuals crave closeness and reassurance. This means that anxious individuals are often seeking out partners who initially appear independent and strong. Avoidants, on the other hand, value their independence but can be drawn to the attention and affection that anxious individuals provide. The thing that everyone always seems to forget about avoidance is that need for closeness is always present. It's always there. Let's refer once again to page 114 of Attached. Rachel S.F. Heller writes,
The experiments show that although you may be avoidant, your attachment machinery is still in place, making you just as vulnerable to threats of separation. Only when your mental energy is needed elsewhere, and you are caught off guard, however, do these emotions and feelings emerge.
So what unfolds is a vicious cycle. The avoidant and anxious partners become a couple. Eventually, the behaviors of anxious individuals trigger avoidance's fears of being overwhelmed or losing their independence, while the distance created by avoidance can exacerbate the anxious individual's fear of abandonment. This push-pull dynamic can become a familiar and often addictive cycle for both. In a weird way, they both crave it. You see, what I've noticed often is that people are unconsciously drawn to partners who fit their attachment patterns developed in childhood. Anxious individuals might seek avoidance to recreate familiar relationship dynamics, hoping to resolve past traumas or fears through their current partner. Okay. So all of this has been set up for what I'm about to say next. Habit number 5, sell them what they want, give them what they need. It's pretty much universally agreed that the best for avoidance is a secure one. But that's a bit of a problem for me. It's not like you can just snap your fingers and suddenly become more secure. And honestly, most secure individuals won't even get into a relationship with avoidant individuals. But I'm getting off topic here. My problem with become more secure from an avoidant perspective is that it's not particularly attractive to them. You see, it's a want versus need problem. This is K.M. Weiland. She's an award-winning and internationally published author known for her acclaimed writing guides like structuring your novel, creating character arcs, and writing archetypal character arcs. She also writes fiction, including Wayfarer, Storming, Dreamlander, and Behold the Dawn. Additionally, she teaches story theory and technique on her award-winning blog. She wrote this book, Creating Character Arcs, which I know this seems like a weird analogy, but bear with me here. She makes the argument that in every story there are two sides or competing beliefs. What a character wants, which she defines as something that's almost always external, something physical, and what a character needs, which she defines as the truth, the lesson the character needs to learn. So let's take a super simple movie like Toy Story, the very first one. We have our main character, Woody. He's Andy's favorite toy. He wants nothing more than to stay as Andy's favorite toy. He wants all of Andy's love for himself. And then Woody's life gets ruined with the introduction of Buzz Lightyear, a toy who becomes Andy's new favorite. All of a sudden, what Woody wants is being assaulted by this new toy, so Woody does what he does. He attempts to get rid of Buzz Lightyear. The entire first movie of Toy Story is about Woody's transformation of moving away from what he wants, keeping Andy's love all for himself, to accepting what he needs, learning to share Andy's love with others. And it's not until he learns this lesson that Woody's character arc for that movie is complete. So I know this is a really weird analogy, but avoidants are kind of like that. You see, what avoidants want is a partner that's just like them, someone who's independent, strong-willed, and in some cases absent. But what they need is someone who is secure. The problem here is really twofold. First, if you sell yourself to an avoidant as secure, they won't be interested. Second, truly secure people don't usually pursue avoidance. And I guess that's what I'd like to call out here. Most of the people interested in habits like the ones I've discussed today, interested in making avoidance beg for their attention, likely aren't secure. They're likely anxious. My own internal research into my community backs this up. Now, the antidote that works to attract avoidance is almost mirroring their avoidant-like behavior. However, attracting avoidance and working on your own attachment style to be more secure is kind of at odds with one another. And it's at odds because if you're able to move your attachment style to being more secure, then guess what? You usually don't want that avoidant back anymore. I've watched it happen hundreds of times firsthand with real clients. So while you may start by selling the avoidant what they want, remember, it's ultimately about getting what you need. As you work on becoming more secure, your perspective may change. And you might realize that the relationship that you thought you wanted no longer fits your new, healthier self.